Hi, my name is Tamara, and you are watching Things Even a Monkey Should Know. Thanks so much for watching again today. As you know, if you've watched some of my other videos, I'm not a professional at this do-it-yourself stuff. I'm just a girl who's figured out that there are a lot of things around the house and out in the yard and on my cars that I can do myself, and often save myself both time and money. So hopefully you have saved both of those things now too. So today is part 1 of 4, or what I believe is going to be 4. You might notice that we are in the bathroom. It's been a while since we've been here, and I have decided to redo the floor in my shower. So it's a little bit more involved of a project than what I often do for these videos, but I think it's probably an important thing to do, and like everything else, it is entirely possible to do it yourself. Just don't be scared. So let's get started. So I just want to show you really quickly the shower floor that we're going to be doing. It's a fairly small area. Today we're going to be tearing out the floor. So you can see it's just kind of old and yuck, and I mean it's been in here for 20 years and it's had some issues now and then, and well, it's come down to either I'm going to have to strip the grout out and redo it, or just redo the floor. And since I think I can do a floor that I like better, that's what I'm gonna do. So as I always like to do in the beginning, first we're gonna go over the things that we're gonna need today. And again, all that we're doing today is ripping out the old tile floor. Now my tile is directly on concrete, so that, or directly on the slab of the house, so that makes it, I think, a little easier for me. So the first things, of course, is always safety. You don't probably want to breathe in the dust that you're gonna be making while you pull up your tile, so you'll want a dust mask. You also always want to protect your eyeballs from flying debris, so you want a dust mask and goggles, safety goggles or safety glasses. I have a pair of gloves because I suspect that I'm going to cause some blisters on my hands otherwise, so I just have those available. You're going to need the things with which to scrape up said tile. Make sure that you get one that says that it is specifically a mason's chisel. There are other kinds. There's wood, there's brick, there's general purpose, all that stuff, but this is specifically for picking up tile. You will need something with which to pound that chisel, so a hammer. I'm not sure if I'm going to be more comfortable with a hammer or a mallet, so I have both. Also, since I don't know exactly what I'm going to be finding, I have a putty knife just for something to slide under there. You may even want to have a pry bar. Again, with my situation, I'm doing ceramic. I'm taking up old ceramic tile. I don't know what the situation is with how it was applied originally, so this is going to be an adventure. I do know that I have caulked around the edges, so I'm going to need to get up that old caulk. So I do have a little flat bladed scraper and some extra blades. Probably not a bad idea. I also have what might appear to be something random, but all that this is a weighted container that is the same diameter as the drain in the shower, because I do not want the stuff that I'm scraping up to go down the drain and potentially clog up the drain, which it could easily do, right? So I'm just gonna set this over the drain while I'm in there working. And then of course, you'll want stuff to clean up, so with which to clean up rather. So you'll wanna either have, say, a trash bag, but for me, I'm going to initially be putting all the big chunks into a bucket. I have a broom with a nice dustpan, which can kind of act as a shovel, and that'll be for the larger pieces. And then once I get everything cleaned up and get to the end, the smaller pieces will be picked up with a shop vac. So I believe that is everything that I'm looking at using today. I know it looks like a lot of tools, but it's pretty much all stuff, save that masonry chisel, that's pretty much all stuff that you probably already have around your house. Easy. Well, you guys know how much I absolutely adore working in these tight spaces all the time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start out with an area of tile that's a little bit loose, and actually I can promise it'll be loose, but what I did was just tapped around in here until I found a place that sounded hollow, which you don't want a hollow place. So presumably if I stepped right here, I might cause it to crack, right? So that's where I'm gonna start with my chisel, as opposed to just taking a big whack on the tile, which you could do that too. It would be a little messier, might cause some flying hazardous pieces. But instead, let's just go ahead, whoops, make sure you don't fog up your glasses, and just start with an area. Let's see what we can get up here. Okay, I don't know if y'all could see, but this is actually moving. So this is the point where I would want a little something to stick under there and pry under there. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a pry bar, and I'm also gonna get that putty knife. And I'm just gonna start tearing stuff up, and you'll get to watch this fun. But this was a good place to start. So if you can find somewhere that the tile is kind of damaged to start, that's the ideal place. Again, you can cause your own damage. So the prying off of the tile went pretty well, I thought. It actually only took an hour, so that wasn't too bad. So the next thing that I'm gonna do, you saw I went ahead and I vacuumed out, cleaned out all the crumbs and stuff in here. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go around the edges, and I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the edges. And then we're going to tackle this nice thin set texture that's still left on the bottom of the shower. Okay, so you guys saw that I didn't have a whole lot of trouble getting the tile up. Now we are left with all of that textured thin set junk underneath the tiles. And I didn't mention in the beginning anything about taking this off, right? Well, here's the reason why. A few years ago, well, first of all, you saw that darker gray area under the tiles that was up in this corner up close to the front of the shower, right? Well, a few years ago, I had to re-stick some tiles that came up, and whenever I took them up, it was a smooth slab under there, and I wasn't sure how they'd been glued down, but it didn't appear that they were put down with thin set. So I wasn't for sure that that's how that was done. And by the way, thin set is the mortar essentially that ceramic tile, any tile, is attached to the substrate with, or the backing. So I didn't know exactly what I was going to have to contend with once I got all those tiles up. So there's a couple more things to add on to our list of stuff that we needed today. And since I'm doing a small space, again, I'm using smaller tools, more manual tools. So I need a grinder with a concrete and masonry grinding wheel. And that is what I'm going to use to get up the thin set. I'm going to need my earplugs. And of course, I'm going to be using things to protect my eyes and my breathing, because this is going to be extremely dusty. So one other thing you might need, depending on what you're doing or where you're doing it, is you may need plastic sheeting to go around your work area. Now, I can close the door. This is a small bathroom. I can close this off so the dust doesn't get all over the rest of the house. But if you were doing it in a more open area, I would highly recommend making yourself kind of a dusty area so that you don't wind up with this concrete dust everywhere. And it is so important, guys, to make sure that you wear your dust mask, because this stuff is not good to breathe. It's never good to breathe dust. Concrete dust is particularly bad. And if you happen to be peeling up tile that was put down before the 80s, there's a chance also that there's asbestos in your thin set that you're going to be tearing up. So definitely do not want to breathe that either. So just remember to be safe. So let's get started with the dusty stuff. One other thing, guys, I almost forgot to mention is that if you were doing a larger space of tile or area that you pulled up that you need to get the thin set off of, you can actually rent machines that do the same thing. They're just a lot bigger, like, you know, the wheels like that big. I don't know what they're called, but I'm sure if you described them to a tool rental place, they would be able to hook you up. So that's just one other note. So, as you could see, things got really dusty in there. In fact, I had to change clothes because I looked like a ghost of myself. One of the things that I learned today was if you think it's going to be messy, go ahead and multiply that by about 1,000. So if I had this to do over, I would go ahead and put plastic sheeting in the shower so that I didn't, even though that was a small space in there, everything got completely coated in that dust, and it was a huge mess. Probably one of the biggest messes I have ever made in my entire life. And y'all got to see it. Yay! So, you know, if you're, whatever space you're doing, I would say coat it with plastic, or cover everything with plastic, and then cover it again with plastic, just to be sure, because that dust, the good thing about it is that it's really light and easy to suck up with the vacuum cleaner. The bad thing about it is that it's really light, so it gets everywhere. So, all that being said, a few mistakes. I probably would have worn some different clothing, maybe just a large plastic bag or something would have been in order. And I might have gotten actually a bigger shop vac. Actually, I would have invested in a bigger shop vac if I'd known it was going to be that bad, or maybe, you know, even just a second small one, because once I started using the vacuum cleaner continuously, it did help cut down on the dust in there. So on the good side of this, I did get the thin set sanded down and mostly off. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect and like a brand new smooth floor again. So that's the good news. So that is ready to go. I'm waiting on it to dry out. I'm sure you guys saw that there were a few places where there were cracks, and you could see the big inset for the shower, and that had separated away from the rest of the foundation. So it is a little bit wet down in there. So I'm gonna let that dry out for a day probably before I go to put the new tile over it. So that was step one. I hope you learned a few things today. Like I have said many times in the past, I'm not a professional. Some of this I figure out as I go, as you saw today, but I hope that it gives you the confidence that you can do this too. So I hope it helped you, and maybe you learned a few things. Thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you very much to everybody who has already subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, please feel free to go ahead and press the button located on that side of the screen. And please also share the show with your friends. Thank you again, like I said, for watching, and have a great week, and I'll see you again soon.